Hello, welcome back to my channel. You are watching Hannah's Library and I'm Hannah and I love to read. And today I wanted to do the mid-year freakout book tag, which comes out every year around about June and start of July sort of time, like the midway point of the year, and I wanted to contribute. And just because I'm getting back into the swing of posting again, I thought it would be apt to kind of show you guys what I've been reading recently, the authors I've been liking, and just kind of have a discussion of what the year's been like so far for me reading wise, so we can kind of catch up with one another in a very efficient way. So yeah, I have my trusty laptop here to show me the questions, and I've looked at the books that I will need, and yeah, let's have a little look at what we're looking at here. So the first question is, what is the best book you've read so far this year? So I couldn't choose one. I have chosen two books that I read at the start of the year, and these were like the first 5 stars, and they were within like the first 2 months of the year. And I honestly don't think I've had books that I've loved so much than these two since reading them. So the first one is On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong, and this is a kind of letter format where a son of a Vietnamese immigrant writes to his mother, knowing that she'll never be able to read what he's trying to say to her. And it's like it's a very interesting concept, and it deals with a lot. It deals with, of course, the relationship between a mother and son, but more than that, it's about what life is like for immigrant communities, and specifically dealing with the generational trauma that a lot of Vietnamese families dealt with in the fallout of the wars, because like he's only a generation removed from the atrocities. Like, his grandma was a young woman, his mum was born in the midst of the war, and to him the war isn't just stories passed down, he can see the very real effects of it. And it's just, yeah, and it's all about kind of class, race, sexuality, and just the identity politics in modern day America. And I cannot recommend this enough. And then we have A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf. I fell in love with Virginia Woolf's writing in this. This was my first ever proper go at reading a Woolf, and I was not disappointed. I loved it. I loved references to so many writers that I know and I love, and I loved just the feminist take on creativity, and basically saying like, give women the means and a chance to be creative, and your misogynistic ideologies won't stand a chance, because women will instantly, and even with all these things in place, have been producing and writing things that are just as amazing as men have. And yeah, it's amazing. And the kind of premise, like the opening thing is on the thing, is a woman must have money and a room of her own if she is to write, which kind of condemns the fact that finances were heavily controlled by men at the time, and a woman had very financial she financially depended on other people, and she often didn't have the space to be creative, because well, within the family home, you know, you have parents, husbands, children, siblings, and there's just, if you're there within the capacity which Woolf is kind of imagining, a lot of women having to look after their male family members and younger family members, um, and you know, not having that space to create. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. I'm definitely going to be giving this a reread at some point. So yeah, those were the best books I've read so far this year, and I'm sure there's going to be so many more, but yeah, I couldn't choose between those two because yeah, new favorite authors, absolutely. So we have a new release that you haven't read yet but dying to. So I've written here Yesteryear by Carol Clare Burke and Lost Lambs by Madeline Cash. So those were two kind of first half of the year releases that I haven't read yet, and there's so much hype about Yesteryear, there's so much hype around Lost Lambs, and I really want to try and get into more contemporary literary fiction, because I'm very much guilty of being within my comfortable space of, like, I wouldn't say I stick to one genre wholly, but definitely favour my classic genre. And you know, I don't think there's anything wrong with sticking with your favourite genres, but I definitely think that modern literary fiction is a genre that I would deeply enjoy if I gave it a chance. It's a different way of writing to the classic literature that I've been reading, but that should be something that recommends itself to me. So yeah, those are two that I want to get to and read at some point this year. But I haven't gotten to them yet, and I've already got an incredibly large TBR, so maybe a audiobook, or I don't know. We'll see. What's your most anticipated releases for the second half of the year? So I've got two. I've got A Brief Moment, in one brief moment, all eternity by Elif Shafak. This is about Gustav Flaubert, the author of Madame Bovary, and it's told, like, his life is told through the women in his life, I believe. But yes, it might be really interesting to see that. I haven't read Madame Bovary, but I definitely want to, and I will probably read Madame Bovary as like preemptive reading to read this particular book. And then I've put Arthur by Amy Jeth. This is a non-fiction about the legends of Arthur, and when I say non-fiction, it's a kind of account told from a historical lens about the legends of Arthur. Sorry, I'm just realising that I've lost the back of my earring. That's annoying, sorry. It's fine, it shouldn't fall out, and I'll be able to go and quickly grab a replacement back. But yeah, anyway. Yeah, so Arthur by Amy Jeth. I actually wrote my dissertation on Arthurian legend, so it's definitely an area of interest because I don't think anyone's able to write 10,000 words on something that they're not interested in. So yeah, I'm just really interested in picking that up. So yes, and yeah, those are two ones that I've written down that I'm really looking forward to. But I definitely want to, like, those two questions made me realize how little I pay attention to new releases. So I need to do better with that. But you know, you can't do everything. You can't, you know, like, the reader in me wants to keep up with new releases but wants to read every classic, because I'm like, oh my god, there's so many classics that, as someone that says all I do is read classics, there's some classics that I haven't read that I would be embarrassed to admit that I haven't read yet, but I have every intention of getting to them. But I'm only one person with one brain. You know, only so many hours in the day, and yeah, so it's crazy, and I can't remember how many books get released in the UK every year, but the number is astronomical. And I feel like I heard the number in relation to the Bodleian Library, which has to have a copy of like everything ever released, and obviously they can't have everything in display, and they have to have everything, like, they had to start putting things in storage down below, and there's like a whole network down on, like, for the Bodleian and things like that. It's like a intricate network because there's just so many books out there. So yeah, what I'm trying to say is that you know, you can't do everything, but you know, maybe a happy medium. And just be kind to myself and realize I am only one person. I can't read everything. The next question is, what have been your biggest disappointments of this year? So I picked up a book called Maps by T.S. Lerner, I think it was called, and it sounded really interesting to me. It had all the hallmarks of something really good for me personally. It looked like it had a splash of magical realism. It was about the 1950s. A Oxford professor. But I got a couple of chapters in, and I just did not like this Oxford professor, and yeah, I just was not gelling with it, and I was like, oh no, that, like, dark academia is usually a slam dunk with me, or like magical academia as well, is usually like like anything with a academic setting I just genuinely adore and love. And unfortunately, I got a few chapters in and I just could not stand this professor, and I was just thinking to myself, there is nothing that can happen in this story that makes me want to experience him change his ways, because I just don't care. Like, you know, I hope he does better and is a better person to the people around him and who he should care about. But I just didn't want to be there for it. So that just was a red flag to me. I was like, no. The premise and the plot had everything going for it, but the main character was just not for me. So that was Maps by T.S. Lerner. So yeah. Biggest surprise of reading. I got it here? Yeah, here we go. So I was originally going to be like, oh, I don't really want to say what my biggest disappointment or what my biggest surprise, because I don't want to, you know, bring down someone's work, and I also don't want to, either by saying it was a disappointment or that I thought it was going to be bad, because my Year of Rest and Relaxation by Ottessa Moshfegh, I didn't think it was going to be bad. I picked it up, obviously because I thought it was going to be good, but I was surprised with how much I enjoyed it. Because if there's something you should know about me personally, is that sometimes weird girl literature can be a hit or miss, because there's certain topics and I very easily become uncomfortable, which is something that weird girl literature kind of thrives on, like, to sort of thing. So my year of rest and relaxation, I was a bit apprehensive to say, but I was very pleasantly surprised that I was like, I don't know how to describe it, because I feel like, oh, you were pleasantly surprised by enjoying some really like dark topics. And it's not like, I feel like enjoying weird girl literature is, I don't know if enjoyment's the right word, but it explores, it touches on things that you know, sometimes are skirted about, and that's an important side of literature. But as I say, as a person, I'm genuinely very uncomfortable, like easily made uncomfortable with certain topics, and Rogal literature just felt prime for something for me to be turned off of. Um, but I really enjoyed my year of rest and relaxation. So I knew it was going to be good. It's popular for a reason, and Rogal literature is popular for a reason, and Letitia Mosveg is obviously a very talented writer, and I would 100% pick up another book by Letitia Mosveg. So yes, that was the biggest surprise. New favourite author. So I've already mentioned Virginia Woolf, I've already mentioned Ocean Vuong, who were both new authors to me, but I also feel like I need to mention another member of the Bloomsbury group who I've introduced myself to this year, and that is E.M. Forster. I adored A Room with a View, which was my first book. I was keeping it as like a springtime read, and I just had such a good time. I loved the Italian background to the first part of the book. And yeah, I loved it. And then Maurice, oh my goodness, I feel like Maurice is even better. I loved it. And can we talk about this copy? Can we talk about it? It's amazing. Amazing. I love it. So yes, E.M. Is it Forster. E.M. Forster. So yes, new favourite authors right there, 100%. Newest fictional crush. I feel like this question isn't really for me, because as someone that reads literature, sometimes classic literature, and sometimes the characters aren't like the best people and things like that. I don't really read characters that I feel like, you know, not to the, but I don't really read genres that kind of foster that sort of relationship with the characters that you're reading about. Like, yeah, I don't know, and maybe just me personally as a person, I just don't tend to feel that way towards the characters I'm reading about. So I'm sorry, I don't have a newest fictional crush, but yeah, no, sorry. But I would love to hear about other people's, you know, but yeah, it's just not something that's part of my reading life, I'm afraid. So a book that made you cry. So the Hunger Games trilogy. I listened to the original Hunger Games trilogy on audiobook this year, and obviously I'm very familiar with the Hunger Games, everything that happens. It's like, I'm 23 years old, which means I grew up in prime dystopia, like YA time, you know, like that sort of time. So obviously the Hunger Games were incredibly popular for the time that I was growing up, so I knew what was gonna happen, and I just, oh yeah, it was devastating. It was devastating, and I am still planning on rereading A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes and Sunrise on the Reaping before the movie comes out in November. So please do pray for me, because, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Those books, I feel like everyone can relate to just emotionally being destroyed by the Hunger Games. So, a book that makes you happy. So, on the flip side, we have a book that made me happy, and Persuasion by Jane Austen. I was just happy being back in Jane Austen's world. Um, we have like I knew there was three sisters, and I was kind of like, there was Anne, and then what were the names of her sisters again? And it's all just clicking. So yes, we have Anne and Captain Wentworth, and Captain Wentworth and Anne had a sort of fling, but Anne was kind of persuaded not to pursue it at the time, even though it was obviously meant to be. Captain Wentworth was the only person for her, and Anne was willing to live a very sad and kind of lonelier existence because her dad, her sister Elizabeth were quite close to one another, and then her sister Mary, I believe the youngest, was her name Mary? Yeah, anyway, she has a family, and Anne's kind of on her own team, and suddenly Wentworth 8 years later is back in her life, and she kind of realizes that she was persuaded in the wrong direction, and her happiness, it's still connected to Captain Wentworth. So yes, I just loved being in Jane Austen's world again. I loved it. Oh yeah, loved it, loved it, loved it. Do not love the adaptation, but that's neither here nor there. The book is so good. Jane Austen can do no wrong as far as I'm concerned. So the next question is, what is the most beautiful book you have bought or received this year? So again, I'm gonna have to refer you to Maurice by Ian Forster. Forster. Sorry, I keep on doing that. Basically, I got this book from a bookshop, a secondhand bookshop that I was volunteering once a week at, and me being me, I usually left with a book of my own a couple of times. This happened, and yeah, this copy of Maurice was luckily one of the ones that I picked up, and I'm so grateful I did. So grateful. I just love it. It's so beautiful. So yeah, that has to be the most beautiful book I have bought or received this year. So that was easily answered. What are the books you need to read before the end of the year? So I kind of want to look at some books that kind of sum up my intentions for reading for the rest of the year. So here we have Sense and Sensibility and Night and Day. This by Jane Austen, this by Virginia Woolf. Sense and Sensibility, I believe, is about sisters. Marianne and Eleanor, I believe, are similar in age. And there's Edward. I was gonna say his name begins with an E, doesn't it? But obviously the main thing is that this is getting a adaptation this year. I believe it comes out in September, so I kind of want to read this in August, give this time to kind of sit with before seeing the adaptation. So yeah, I'm definitely going to be viewing the adaptation and reading this beforehand, so yes. And this is about Catherine, and I believe it's about Catherine's choices romantically, and she's kind of caught between I think one's a poet and one's of a kind of lower social class, which was which I kind of feel like the romantic aspect of it is all going on in the background while Catherine herself, is trying to pursue her intellectual interests, which I find very amazing. I love any book that's about anyone going out and just pursuing their interests, because I admire that. I can relate to having interests that you just need to get out. So yeah, those two books represent my want to just get into the habit of reading books for adaptations before watching the adaptations, because I really want to be the person that I read the book first, and then we have my current read is actually in this pile, Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. So I'm already making progress with this, but this book has been on my fantasy shelves for years, I think since like December 2019. So it is definitely one of the oldest books still on my TBR. And I'm finally getting to it, and I'm so glad. I am so glad. This is about Laszlo, and Laszlo didn't get the best start in life, and things look up for him, but suddenly the opportunity of his dreams kind of falls upon him, but he has to fight for it, and it doesn't just fall at his feet. He starts to stand up for himself and realize his worth in a society that kind of encouraged him to make himself as small but as useful as possible. So yeah, and it's all kind of surrounding his interest in the lost city, or called Weep. The name was lost one random day due to magic, and there's a lot of mystery because no outsiders have ever been allowed into Weep, and there's this whole mystery because Weep just suddenly stopped any outside trade 200 years before, and then when Laszlo was 5, everyone just forgets the name, and Laszlo kind of feels like he's the only person still caring, and then suddenly people from Weep turn up asking for help, and Laszlo stands up for himself, gets himself on the team, and is all about unraveling that mystery surrounding Weep, and going on that journey with Laszlo to kind of reevaluate his relationship with his worth. So yeah, I've chuckled a good few times. I've kind of felt that it's doing a very delicate balancing act with taking in some very difficult topics, but while also doing that balancing act of also making you chuckle a couple of times. We are split POV because it's not all just about Laszlo, but I kind of feel like it would be a spoiler to tell you anything more. So, yes. There we go. And then we have The Fat Black Woman's Poems by Grace Nichols. This is a poetry collection, and this is representing my want to read more poetry. I seriously lost the ability to read poetry, and I was going into poetry collections the same way that I was reading my prose, and it just was not doing anything. It just wasn't working. So I was glad to finally start reading poetry again, and this is one of the poetry collections that I'm desperate to read. So yes, and then honestly, as I mentioned earlier, there is just some classic authors that I am just affronted to admit I've never read from before, and Toni Morrison is on the top of my priority list because I have never read anything from Toni Morrison, and that is changing this year. And I own Beloved, but I want to purchase The Bluest Eye, and I want to do a ton of research and just make sure I am doing Toni Morrison's work justice. So yes, this is about going back and giving some amazing authors the chance that they've deserved to be read. Like, obviously, so like these authors are behemoths of the literature world for a reason, and I want to be part of that. So yes. So yeah, I feel like that is the last question. My laptop has switched off. Favorite book community members. So honestly, my favorite book community members, anyone that's encouraging people to read, whatever genre and things like that. Whoever is encouraging people to read and to read widely and diversely and make themselves uncomfortable. Anyone that's pushing that narrative, you are my favorite book community member. Absolutely. So yeah, that's a very vague but I feel accurate answer to that question. So yeah, that is the end of this mid-year freak out book tag. I hope I didn't ramble on too long. I've been filming for like half an hour, so I do apologize if this is a bit long. I do apologize, but I've enjoyed talking about books. I've enjoyed sharing my answers to these questions, and yes, I'm again happy to be back here on YouTube. So yeah, thank you for listening, and I shall see you guys in my next video. Bye!